Okay, starting the webinar.
All right, I see Caitlin's letting all of our participants in, so we'll go ahead and start this morning. So good morning, everyone, and welcome. We want to actually extend a big welcome to any first-time attendees and new members. So if you have a chance, we'd love for you to introduce yourself by using the chat box, which is down below. Make sure that you hit all participants on there. And thank you for joining us for our monthly meeting. I'm Julie Arthur. I'm the CASH chair, and I'm also the Executive Director of Facilities and Planning for Palm Springs Unified School District. Go to the next slide, please. So our inbox here, make sure that you are looking at our CASH weekly email updates. They have all kinds of information with them. They talk about events, workshops, conferences, professional opportunities, and just about anything else new going on in our school facility world at this time for 2021. I'm just really happy to say that 2021, I was ready to kick 2020 out the door long ago. So I know you get lots of emails in your inbox, tons of them right now with every type of PPE that you've ever wanted to have. But if you have a chance, please go ahead and open up our email and take a look and see what's happening. All kinds of new webinars and web shops coming up every week. So let's go to the next slide. And then also for your reference, CASH, we created a COVID-19 resource page. So it has information from state agencies, our webinar content that we're talking about, news articles, and everything we can just kind of compile and put to there regarding COVID-19. So have a chance, go to the CASH website, click on the COVID-19 resources link, and take a look around and see if there's something there that could help with an issue for you. Let's go to the next slide. Hey, Jeff, can you talk a little bit about what's going on at the conference?
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Good morning, everyone. In case you have not heard already, the big news regarding the annual conference is a date change from March 1st through 3rd to June 28th to 30th, still in Palm Springs. So we're really excited and hopeful that that's going to be far enough back that we can get together in person. Golf tournament will be the day before on the 27th, and we're firming that up. So super excited about that as well. We'll maybe try and get some early tee times there in Palm Springs. So if you have registered already for the conference, your registration will automatically transfer over to the new date, as well as if you're an exhibitor or sponsor or speaker, et cetera, any of those folks involved in the conference. And you should have received an email regarding that with additional information on that change. And be on the lookout very shortly for hotels. We're working to move over and give folks the opportunity to save their block at the Renaissance. And we have space at the Palm Springs Hilton Hotel. So be looking for that as well here in the next few days. And Julie, we're super excited to come down and see you in Palm Springs there.
Well, bring your sunscreen. That's all I'm going to say. Lots of sunscreen and lots of water for June. But it still should be a great time. The weather, yeah, it might be a little warm, but it's going to be great weather. So it'll just be really, I just look forward to seeing everyone in person is what I'm looking forward to. That is the opportunity. So if everyone's out there, if you can get your vaccinations when they're get in line and get those, it'd be great. Let's just get ourselves into 2021, be healthy. I look forward to seeing each other.
Thanks, Julie.
With that next slide. All right, so yesterday was part one of our two-part web shop, and that was on the governor's budget, the revenue forecast legislation, and federal funding in 2021. Really good discussion with Dave Walrath and Bob Canavan on the federal issues, and we also had CEC in with an awesome discussion on AB 41 and the requirements and as they're firming that up and what's happening. So really good web shop yesterday. Now tomorrow is part two of that web shop, and it's going to focus on best practices for preparing to open our schools to serve our communities in 2021. I think we're going to have a little more update too on some things happening with opportunities out there as well for funding for our different things. So registration and full details for tomorrow's web shop can be found on our CASH website. Also, You need to register by 5 o'clock today. I know it's hard when you go look on it tomorrow, like, oh, I need to register, but we kind of close our registration at 5. So please make sure that you can find that link. You'll be getting another email today reminding you to register for that. And if you can get that in, that would be awesome. So thank you. Next slide. All right. So we've got our state agency updates, and our first one up is the Division of State Architect, and we have Ida Claire, who is our acting state architect. Hi, Ida. Welcome. How are you doing?
Surviving the storm that hit the state last night. We were just discussing that earlier. It was a little crazy around here. Good morning, everyone. I'm here to provide an update at DSA. Lots of things going on, so I'll get right to it. We have leadership changes at DGS. We have a new deputy director who is now acting director. Our director, Dan Kim, has moved on to another opportunity. And so there is a search for a new department director at General Services, which is our lead agency. We also have some leadership changes coming to DSA. We do have a principal structural engineer and principal architect solicitation out right now. Applications are due on Friday, and for the Sacramento Regional Office Manager, which is Dan Lavernier, retired at the end of October. And so we have that solicitation out now, and we plan on interviewing in February. So hopefully there will be a new regional office manager for the Sacramento office by March 1st. We also are hiring a new principal structural engineer. That solicitation is out as well. Jim Hackett, our principal structural engineer at headquarters, retired at the end of December. And so those solicitations are running concurrently. And again, those applications are due this Friday. We're hoping to have interviews in February and also have that leadership in place by March 1st. A little bit about our workload. This month in January, we have approximately $554 million worth of work that is presently in plan review. All our offices are generally busy. In February, we actually have $1.1 billion coming in for plan review or scheduled as appointments. And that does not include the week of February 28th. Actually, it does, because it goes into March. Sorry, I'm looking at the schedule. And even though it says 0, that's because if it's on a Monday, it would fall into March. So we have $1.1 billion coming in for plan review in February. Our busiest office appears to be San Diego, actually, interestingly enough. And in March, we already have $400 million scheduled, with 3 weeks left for scheduling appointments to go in the month of March. So we are busy here at DSA. Hopefully all of you are busy with your projects as well, because our plan reviews indicate that hopefully there'll be a lot of construction coming our way later on in the year. Project inspector certification. We did have to cancel our testing in January. We had hoped to resume initial certification testing in January, but the COVID-19 pandemic did put a damper on things. It will now resume in March. So we should hopefully have new inspectors starting in March after they take their exam. Our recertification testing for project inspectors is online with remote proctoring and ongoing, and that assists those project inspectors to maintain their certification and continue working for all of you. Our sustainability education and outreach, we are in month 7 of the cohort. It's going well. Again, this is a year-long cohort with the 58 school districts to help them, assist in them developing sustainability plans for zero net energy and zero net carbon future. The Energy Commission is anticipating their 45-day comment period for the new energy code provisions to begin in February. Again, that proposal includes all electric new construction. And so if you want more information on that, please go to the energy.ca.gov website and sign up for their emails with regard to 2022 Building Efficiency Title 24. We are still working on training our inspectors for installation and acceptance testing. The National Energy Management Institute, who certifies the acceptance testing technicians, is providing the training. That should be on their website, I believe, either later February now. I'm not quite sure what the delay is, but once that training is on that website, we will be notifying our project inspectors for that training so that they can ensure that they're collecting the installation and acceptance testings for your mechanical and electrical systems after the construction process. Those testing compliance ensures that your facilities are operating as designed and in optimal operation, which of course will go a long way to energy efficiency of those systems. When that training comes forward, it might be beneficial for all your facility managers to take that training. The certificates that are required are a good tool to use annually to test your own systems and maintain compliance once construction is done. So we'll let you know when that is available. It's going to be on the NEMI website, the National Energy Management Institute website, and that training, I believe, is offered for free. Our rulemaking, we had our Cal Green workshop on January 7th for the 2022 Cal Green Code. We don't have very many proposals this year. Our one is issuing some requirements on clarification on shade trees, and that is specifically that on hardscape areas, marked and designated play areas can be removed from the calculation of the area coverage. We are proceeding with requirements for CO2 monitors in classrooms because they are now required as of January 1st, 2021. And then also there are requirements or a proposal in Cal Green, which is aligned with the rest of the non-residential construction in the state for new parking areas when you're installing electric vehicle charging infrastructure, that at least one level 2 minimum charger will be required to be installed. These proposals, the shade trees, the CO2 monitors, electric vehicle charging, along with clarifications on requirements of VOC limits, just addressing a new current standard, will be sent to Building Standards Commission by April 2nd for the formal rulemaking process. We don't anticipate having another Cal Green workshop. However, our proposals are on our website. We encourage you to read them. And if you have any comment, please email me or call me to discuss. We do have a new member on our sustainability team. She is Michelle Golden. She was an intake architect at the San Diego Regional Office. She is still in San Diego, but is now working for headquarters on our green team, our sustainability team. So we do welcome Michelle. And we also have our public school construction collaborative. Their first meeting will be in March. We had our introduction meeting, our inaugural meeting in December. We discussed our charter, and so March we're going to hit the ground running with DSA work for our public school construction collaborative. Basically, the March discussion will be on our proposed regulations so that the members of the PSCC can also perform their own outreach to their constituent groups and let them know what DSA is proposing. And other than that, we do have a couple IRs coming through. One is a new IR based for the Clinic in a Can, which is an on-site testing center. If those are part of your plans for reopening for COVID-19, because they are not a school facility, even though they may be on your campus, DSA does not need to review. We will clarify, however, that they can't block, when they're placed on a campus, they can't block accessible routes and they can't block any fire dispersal areas. And so if you have questions, we do encourage that you contact DSA on placement. But there is no formal review required for those clinic operations. They basically look like cargo containers. They're kind of, one model is called Clinic in a Can. Again, we don't have to review those structures if they are part of your opening procedures. We also are issuing IRN2, which is regarding the CO2 monitors because they are required as of January 1st. So DSA will be checking for those in the plans and also on site for projects under construction to ensure that you have those available as part of the project. And other than that, I don't have any further updates. So I can take questions if any has questions.
Well, I didn't see any come into the chat box, but I've got a question, Ida, and I am with your workload, and I know down here we're Palm Springs and through the San Diego office. I'm hearing that appointments are pushed out several months.
Really? Okay. I will find out. So your San Diego office. Again, our San Diego office is the busiest right now.
Yeah.
But I will find out so you're saying it's taking longer than 6 weeks to secure an appointment? Okay. I will find out what that issue is. Thank you for that alert.
And I'm sure it has to do with the volume of work that has probably gone in after the beginning of the year. You know, there's always those lump times, it seems, that you have a huge just hit all at once. So, so I mean, I guess more so is information is if that's so that then everyone just needs to plan a little better.
I will make sure and get with the regional managers and find out, you know, if they see any of the let up. I did obviously tell your reporting we are busy, which is good for us. Yeah. We obviously want to manage our workload so that we're responsive to all the school districts. Ideally, we like to do the work ourselves. And so if we need to do overtime, we will. Our consultant contracts are also an option, but we like to keep our staff issues busy. So sometimes we share work with an office and that may be a result in order to get an earlier appointment. So I will discuss with them and let you know. I did see there was a question that came through.
Timeline for when the IRs might be issued?
Yeah, so hopefully within the next week. That way it can provide that necessary clarity to all of you, but they are drafted. It's just a matter of getting them published through and approval through DGS, and then they'll be published. So hopefully by the end of this week, or definitely by the end of this week.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. Next up, we have John Gordon with the California Department of Education giving us an update of what's happening there. Good morning, John.
Morning. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. I heard storm hit all of you pretty hard last night up there in Northern California.
I actually was able to comb my hair a little bit. It's pretty strong. It's pretty. In fact, a colleague of mine just sent a picture. I guess his neighbor's gazebo ended up on his roof, so it's pretty brutal.
Wow. Anyway, all right. What's happening at CDE, John?
Well, you know, as Ida and probably Michael Watanabe can attest, you know, the state offices are still working remotely, and we will continue to do so until we feel it is safe to come back into the office. However, I am working with my staff to stay on top of our projects that we receive. You know, and I'm trying to look for different efficiencies to keep things moving. So, you know, we do encourage districts to use the CDE box when they're submitting a project, but you know, if you need to, you know, submit via paper, that's fine too. What I've done to address that situation, because you're dealing with mailing, especially when I have outstation consultants, is that I'm actually have shepherded all the paper projects that we receive. I will be working with my retired annuitant, Michael O'Neill, and he and I will kind of tag team those since we live in close proximity to make sure that those projects are moving just as well as the ones in CDE box. It's always good to let us know if you'll be mailing it in a project, because we're not necessarily in the office every day. But if we have a heads up, we can certainly keep a lookout for it and get that project worked on. You know, one of the things I wanted to bring up is that really want to stress the importance of every project that you have, that you bring it through CDE as you would through DSA, even as a preliminary review. What we're finding is that there are some instances where a district may figure out, you know, that maybe they have a project that is eligible for state funding. and maybe that project's been through DSA a couple of years ago, and now it needs to go through CDE. And sometimes there are some Title V issues in which requires a district to go back to DSA. And so it's always good when you're submitting a project to DSA to submit it to CDE as well, just as a preliminary review. There is no cost. It costs the district $0 to do a preliminary review. CDE charges a fee when we do a final approval, but when you do a preliminary review, there's no cost. So I know, for instance, one of our colleagues down at San Diego Unified, I know with all of their projects, they always submit the project and they don't check off the CEQA or the DTSC, or sometimes those pages are missing in the application, which would trigger, a preliminary review letter saying, you need to update those certs. I mean, that's one easy way for a district to do that. So again, please submit these to preliminary, any project to us as a prelim review if you're not sure if you're going to receive state funding, so that we can move your projects smoothly, so that in the event you qualify for state funding and want to come back, later, we've already done the heavy lifting and we can move the project that much faster. I'm also working with my staff in terms of my former region, which was Imperial, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and San Diego counties. I'm rotating those projects amongst my colleagues. But I am still the main contact. So if you have any questions, you have some projects coming up, you can still contact me directly. And I'll be collaborating with one of my colleagues when we get those plans or those projects here in Sacramento. Other quick reminders. I just want to remind you that Brian Boyd in my shop is the CD contact for the full day kindergarten program, if you have any questions on that. And Angel Dottie is the contact for the CTE program, because I know there are some projects that we'll be working through. So she's now the primary contact, as well as for anything related to charter schools. So with that, that's about my report for today. Are there any questions?
I'm not seeing any come through the chat box. Thank you so much, John. Hopefully the storm is subsiding up there and you guys will be doing all right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. All right. We have the Office of Public School Construction going to give an update next. And we've got Michael Watanabe. Hi, Michael. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us. All right, a few things from me today. First of all, thank you to everyone that attended our K-12 audit workshop last Friday. We had over 275 attendees, which I think is our largest for one of our events ever. If you missed the workshop, the video replay of the workshop is available on our YouTube channel. It should be right on the homepage there. It is also posted on our website on the K-12 resource page, along with the PowerPoint presentation as well. So all the materials are there if you need them. OPSC now can do electronic fund transfers. It took a while to get the process going, but we can do direct transfers from the county treasury to our bank accounts, so you don't have to get warrants issued if that's more convenient for you. If you need to do that, when our accounting unit sends you requests for payments, the contact information for our accounting unit will be in those emails, in that letter. You can contact them and they will provide you the information on how to get those electronic fund transfers started. So that is another option for you guys. For board meeting updates tonight, it's 4 p.m. via Zoom. The meeting link is on our website. As I had mentioned, Jennifer Osborne is the new Deputy Director of DGS. She will actually sit on the board as a designee, serving as the acting director until one is appointed. Unfortunately, there's a power outage at the Ziggurat building in West Sacramento today. So if you had planned to do in-person comments from the Ziggurat, that won't be available at the moment. So you would only be able to do that during Zoom. If that changes, we'll certainly announce it during the meeting. But at the moment, in-person visits to Zig won't be allowed. In Lisa's executive officer statement, she's going to highlight our virtual training series that we're doing throughout the year. The K-12 one was kind of a first kickoff for it. But we plan to update that webpage later this week. Tentatively, we're looking at February 19th. at 10 a.m. for a Basics of School Facility Program Funding workshop. So for those people totally new to the program, that workshop will be designed for them. On February 22nd at 10 a.m., we'll do another one on explaining the different workload lists, unfunded lists, application received beyond bond authority lists. What do those lists mean to you when you submit an application today? And then hopefully in the near future, also we'll list the future workshops throughout the rest of the year as well. So each of the on our website, we do have a page dedicated to the virtual training series. There'll be Eventbrite links so you can get copies of the flyers, the Zoom links, pre-register for the event if you can, although it's not mandatory. So those will all come out this week. For the priority funding request period for the spring bond sale, we received 228 requests for $522 million. OPSC was able to hit the 1.5 billion goal for Prop 51 in bond sales for this fiscal year. So that's good news to everyone there. We were able to meet that. In the action items section agenda, we have our two items. One's our annual adjustments to the school facility program grants. Using the RS means 10 California cities, they calculated a 1.42% increase in construction costs. So the updated SFP grant amounts in there, as well as the annual item increase for tentative track MAC waivers or extensions. Both of those amounts were increased this year. We've also updated the attachment of SFP grants to include the new facility hardship portables grants for replacement projects. So those grants have been updated. The other item we have is a charter school facilities program reg amendments. Last year, the board approved reg amendments leading into Proposition 13 because some reg changes were needed to the program before we implement that. We removed the requirement for 90 days, that a round would start 90 days after the bond election to give us time to change the regs. OAL the Office of Administrative Law requested more specificity to the regulations so that anyone looking at the regulations would know the exact start date. They didn't like starting anywhere between 180 and 365 days. So we hit the middle ground there and just said, we'll start the round 180 days after a bond election for new money into this charter school facilities program. No, there is a typo that may cause confusion. Thank you, Chris, for catching that. On the bottom of page 105 of the staff analysis, we left in a sentence where it said the range would be 180 to 365. Barbara will speak to it at the meeting, but we are starting around exactly 180 days after a bond election. So not a range. And then that round will be open for 120 days. And then the last item in the agenda is our annual item that we're doing is update on local audits performed by local auditors on school district projects. In the calendar year 2020, 91 audits were received by SCO, 55 were certified, 33 rejected, and 9 are still under review. Any of those 33 that were rejected, audit firms were notified of the corrections needed to their audit reports for resubmittal. In total, only 5 of the 55 certified reports had audit findings where money was due back to the state, and it was only about $8,300 in ineligible costs. So relatively good news there. And that's it from OPSC. Any questions?
Well, I'm not seeing any in the chat box, but I'm curious, what the 33 that were sent back, were they just format issues, or what were the issues with those 33?
From my understanding, and SCO is the one I actually sends it back, so we don't get too much information, but our understanding from SCO is they did not meet GAP requirements, that generally accepted audit principles for documentation and all the stuff they evaluate as part of GAP.
All right, I'm hoping maybe out of that, what was rejected and sent back and asking for amendments, maybe we can get a little more information in the future. That way we can make sure most districts can then double check and make sure that prior to sending it in, that they meet that format.
Sure.
That way we're not,
looking at that.
we don't want to waste anybody's time or any of that. So that might be helpful, that we could get a little guidance out of that to address that in a more format way.
Yeah, I could put it out there for them.
Oops, I just saw something come in the chat box from Frank. He's asking, is OPSC offering pre-audits?
We don't do pre-audits, but we do offer the soft reviews of the expenditure reports. So as long as workload is available, we can do that. I believe the contact is Jason Hernandez from our office. His his phone number and email address is on our directory of services on our webpage for the K-12 audit group. And they can do those soft reviews of the expenditure reports.
Okay, great. All right, that's a really good idea. I didn't know that at all. So that's an awesome idea to do that little double check. 'Cause again, we want to make sure everyone's in compliance and doing the best they can and getting these reports into you guys. So that way we can close out that project and move on to the next.
Yeah,
All right, Michael, thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Let's go ahead and go to the next page. And we've got our legislative and regulatory and maintenance network updates. We've got Rebecca Curley on there, Nancy Chairs Espinosa, and Ian Padilla. Who's coming up first? Is it Rebecca?
I think we were going to have Nancy get us started. Nancy, is that correct?
Sure thing.
Thanks.
Hi, Julie. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So we have a little bit of an update now that things in the legislature are starting to be on the upswing. First off, I want to start with budget process. The governor did the slightly unusual action of proposing not just an entire plan for action after the May revision, but he actually proposed different schedules. He proposed an immediate action package and an early action package, in addition to the remainder of his budget proposal, which would be acted on in May. The immediate action portion, most importantly for us, is what includes the in-person instruction grant program. It is nested within, it's one of 4 pillars of his broader Safe Schools for All plan, but it appears to have been deemed not ready for prime time by the legislature. There was a pretty rough reception in the Senate Budget and Senate Education Committee joint hearing last week, or 2 weeks ago. I'm losing my sense of time now in pandemic life, but I think it was last Thursday. So, the legislature, as much as they have been saying that they would like to be more nimble and more relevant in this, in these unprecedented times, they did not find that they were able to move expeditiously on that proposal because there were so many concerns that were raised. So we expect that there are conversations going on. Many leaders, particularly in the assembly budget hearing yesterday, many folks in the legislature and the superintendent of public instruction said that the issues that have been raised, the concerns that have been raised with the in-person instruction grant program and the broader Safe Schools for All plan are not insurmountable, and that they believe that these issues can be addressed and that the administration is going to come back with something that the legislature finds workable. So we are looking forward to that. Of course, we all want to get our kids back to school in person as soon as possible. I want to highlight just quickly the 2 main bond bills that we are watching, and then I'm going to highlight for you 4 other key bills of note for us. So I believe Rebecca has already talked about earlier at one of these meetings, AB 75 by Mr. O'Donnell, the Kindergarten, Community College, Public Education Facilities Bond Act of 2022. As the name implies, it is a K-14 bond bill. The contents are still high level, and Cash is participating in the staff working group being led by Sophia in Mr. O'Donnell's office once again. The amounts, including the overall amount and any specific set-asides, are blank at this point, as is the specific election date. So it will be in 2022, but whether that is a spring or fall election is yet to be determined. The author's office has communicated his desire to avoid major programmatic changes, as was done in the last bond bill. The other bill that we are watching in school facilities land is SB 22 by Mr. Glazer. His bill is a $15 billion K through university bill, so it includes UC and CSU. The K-12 portion, the language itself is the final version of AB 48, which became Prop 51, including the provisions that were a little bit more problematic, those that were the preference of the administration and that were ultimately difficult in the political space. So we will definitely remain engaged, and my colleague Rebecca has already opened the door and started communicating with their office to make sure that they understand what the ramifications of some of that language were when it was time to take that to the voters. A few other bills that I want to highlight for you. First off, SB 5 by Senator Atkins by the Pro Tem is part of the Senate housing package. Cash is advocating for inclusion of LEAs, and specifically for the cities and counties who are the ones who have responsibilities under the Regional Housing Needs Allowance structure to include LEA employee housing in their plans. Maybe ways to incentivize them, provide points or something like that to come to us and talk about what our needs are and how to help make that part of their regional plan. We're also on the lookout for other ways to help LEAs who do need to provide employee housing. Let's see. Next bill is SB 45 by Mr. Portantino. It's a $5.5 billion state GO bond. That is for wildfire. It's called the Wildfire Prevention, Safe Drinking Water, Drought Preparation, and Flood Protection Bond Act of 2022. That sounds like a lot. Once you get into the language of this bill, it's even broader than that. They really are trying to accomplish a great deal. Public agencies writ large and others, nonprofits, are eligible for these funds. So that does include local educational agencies at this point. The part where it says public agencies doesn't point to any particular statutory definition. So by default, so far, that includes us, and we hope that will remain the cause, and that's certainly what we will advocate for. The $5.5 billion in this bill is divided into many smaller pots, some of which could be of use to local educational agencies for things like wildfire recovery, hardening, risk reduction planning, safe drinking water. For the resilience category, we've yet to determine whether that includes solar energy systems and battery storage, but clearly that is something that we will advocate for. Now that we are so highly dependent on distance learning and the technology, we've really come to understand how critical a reliable power source is in continuing that instruction for students. So early in the public safety power shutoff days, we begin to see the effects on students of even shutting down for days or a week or two. So learning loss was occurring even at that time. So the idea that we can be more resilient going forward in the post-pandemic life, where wildfires and public safety power shutoffs are still going to be happening, is pretty important, I think, for us. Two more bills I want to talk about. AB 34 by Mr. Muratsuchi is the Broadband for All Bond Act of 2022. Lots of bonds, as you're seeing. So the governor does not have a specific proposal on broadband, but we do believe that the legislature and the governor are going to work together on this, and it's yet another resource that's increasingly important to the people we serve in K-12. Last bill I want to talk about, AB 22 by Assemblymember McCarty, is the TK, it would provide for TK enrollment for all 4-year-olds by 2030-31. And my colleague Rebecca is going to talk about the governor's proposal, which would actually provide resources to assist LEAs in reaching this goal. And that is all for me, and I will pass it along to Rebecca.
Thank you, Nancy. Just a little bit more on budget and facilities in the budget. Nancy mentioned that the legislature is looking to be more nimble and relevant during this time, and budget is certainly the place where they can do that, flex their muscles a bit. We've seen a lot of executive orders and policy direction coming down from the governor during this unprecedented time, with the legislature sort of stuck behind asking for more information up front and really in a reactive position. But the governor cannot do budget by himself. So he does need to work in conjunction with the legislature to move forward any major policy priorities that have a cost to the state. So this year, I think that the legislature will be particularly interested and engaged in doing policy through the budget process and through trailer bills, which are bills that implement the budget. And trailer bills can be a particularly useful tool because they only require a majority vote, but they go into effect immediately. So it is a way that the legislature can be responsive to what is happening during a pandemic. We've already seen approximately 200 of these vehicles cycles introduced. They're blank right now, awaiting content's great policy ideas to come, right? And I think of these as king trailer bill during the pandemic times. As far as the budget goes, there's also a lot of one-time money that was identified by the governor when he released his budget earlier this month. Over the 3-year period that we're looking at the budget from 2019 through 2022, the governor is estimating $71 billion in additional revenues that were not anticipated when the legislature passed the Budget Act for 2020 this past summer. So there's a lot of one-time money. Now, we're not all just rolling in dough, tossing bills around in the air, very excited about how we're going to spend it. It is one time. We don't know how much of that is actually real. The legislature now gets a crack at deciding how much to recognize and where to put it. And typically in situations where we've got one-time money, the state does not want to use it for ongoing purposes, but they want to use it for one-time purposes. It's not all roses, puppies, and kittens. Both the governor and the legislative analyst's office are saying that we are expected to have structural budget deficits starting in fiscal year 22-23. This is primarily because the demand on state programs will outstrip the growth in revenues that we're expected to have over the next few years. So it's a weird time where we're hearing lots of money, more money than ever for Prop 98, but we all also know that we have a lot of constraints and expenses right now that schools are not used to shouldering with reopening and everything that's happening with the pandemic. So for facilities, some things that are in the budget that we just want to make sure that we highlight for you and we'll be following and engaging on over the next few months. First and foremost is bond sales. So Michael Watanabe mentioned bond sales during his update. The governor also includes another $1.5 billion for 21-22 is what he's proposing for the school facility program. We could also think of this as a potential economic stimulus area. The state has been interested in looking to do things to stimulate the economy. So Cash will continue our advocacy to encourage more bond sales, more apportionments for our school facility program projects. Nancy mentioned transitional kindergarten. There's a proposal to revive the full day kindergarten program, but then to augment it by adding transitional kindergarten facilities as well. So that would be a change in the scope to that program that OPSC has been administering. The governor's proposing $200 million in one-time general fund dollars for these purposes to construct and retrofit facilities to support TK and full day kinder programs. So we'll see what happens there. If you recall, the money for the second cycle of the full day kinder program was swept last year during the budget negotiations in order to help with budget during the pandemic time. So we'll see what's happening there. And then for the CARES Act money, I did want to mention there was significant federal dollars that had come into California for CARES Act 1.0 last year. There was an extension to the deadline to use those dollars. Originally, the deadline was December 30th of last year. The feds, in their action in December, did extend that to December 31st, 2021. So California is now looking at how to incorporate their own touch in this. The governor and his team are proposing that schools would have until May 31st to spend any unexpended dollars. And then after that, the state would redistribute any funds that were not spent. So this is going to be a conversation that's happening in trailer bill because it's additional specificity that we didn't see at the federal level. But it's really exciting that those funds got extended and you can still use them for facilities and for other reopening purposes. I'm going to shift gears quickly and just mention another effort that Cash is watching and participating in, and this is the Davis versus Fresno case related to leaseback. The Cash Legal Advisory Committee, under the leadership of Alan Rising, has been very active the last couple of months, and we really thank our members on the Legal Advisory Committee, and especially Alan, for their leadership in this area. It's been extremely helpful. There was a recent ruling by the Fifth appellate court that has created some confusion on the Davis versus Fresno case related to leaseback. And so this new appellate court ruling we are referring to as Davis 2. Cash recently submitted an amicus letter to the Supreme Court in California, asking that the Supreme Court review this fifth appellate court decision and address the differences that we're seeing that have now come up between different courts, which are creating confusion. Fresno Unified is appealing to the Supreme Court as well. A couple of the things that we're looking at here are the conflict now between Davis 2 and a prior court case, McGee versus Torrance Unified, and that was at the second appellate court. The conflict here is related to validation actions. So the fifth appellate court said, well, Davis also included a taxpayer waste lawsuit that needs to be addressed down at the trial court level. But if that's the case, then there would be a longer statute of limitations than the 60-day window that we currently use for validation action challenges for leaseback. So big difference there. And then this could also trigger disgorgement because of wrongdoing to taxpayers. The other main issue here is uncertainty that's been created by these different court interpretations on whether a financing component or lease payment period are required in leaseback contracts. So these are things that would be really helpful to know if you're undertaking leaseback. So what Cash is doing is we, in addition to having submitted the amicus letter asking the Supreme Court to take this up and help sort out some of this confusion, we're also asking our school district members to submit letters to the Supreme Court as well, asking that they take it up. And only about 3% of cases are taken up at the Supreme Court. So we do need the help to encourage them to understand why this is so important to schools across California. If you are interested, please reach out to myself or to Tom Duffy. We do have a draft letter that we can provide to you that you can make your own, but a communication from leadership in your district would be extremely helpful on this. And again, thank you to our Cash Legal Advisory Committee and to Alan for his leadership on this issue. And with that, I will turn it back over to, I believe, Julie, and then Ian is going to come up. Is that right?
I think I'm just up next. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Julie, for the confusion.
No problem. No worries. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. So the cash maintenance network, I think a lot of our members are pretty aware of the maintenance network's focus on AB 841, initially on making sure it was approved, and now on the details of implementation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Actually, I'm going to do the next presentation. I'll talk about some of the details there, but I'm going to focus for the maintenance network on some of the trainings that we're going to be doing, and of course they're related to AB 841. Yesterday at our monthly workshop, as Julie mentioned, we had gentlemen from the CEC. It's kind of the first presentation that's been done outside of their shop on the status of their development of the regulations. So that's good news, and we're going to continue to do that. But what we're going to do probably, and I'm looking in April, May, around those times, we're still looking at is, of course, a deeper, more extensive training focused solely on AB 841. I'm timing it right when there's a little bit more information from the CEC. If you participated yesterday, you saw that we got the first information, more than could really be expected because of the accelerated timeline, but there's a lot of pieces that are still uncooked. And so we'll continue to work on that. But for folks that want to know more, we're looking to do kind of an application and funding procedures, kind of a level of application and engagement with AB 841. So look for that. We're going to make sure that there's representation from the CEC and other key stakeholders. The folks that did the UC Davis research piece and their white paper, was talking to a gentleman yesterday, and we were reminded that really AB 841 is based on that, and so we want to add that as well. So from the research to down to applying for the funding and all the details, more is coming on that from the Cash Maintenance Network. And also quickly, funding sources beyond AB 841 for indoor air quality and other healthy school environment issues. Dave Walrath, our federal lobbyist, others have talked about that, and so of course the maintenance network is looking very carefully at those issues. Some of those federal proposals allow these funds to be used for things, healthy schools basically, and there's pieces there that enumerate air quality. So AB 841 is tremendously important, but we're looking for other things, other additional supplemental sources because the need is so high. So again, that's all to say we'll be doing more funding and more advocacy on that. And of course, a letter to the CEC summarizing some of Cash's concerns and recommendations. So actually, could we do the next slide? Thank you. The School Energy Coalition wanted to highlight some of the School Energy Coalition's work on AB 841. Because if you look at the bill, it has to do with air quality and it has to do with water, but it really has kind of an energy efficiency framework on it. Once you get into the details, you see there's a lot more related to energy efficiency than maybe the title might suggest. It's also an energy efficiency bill. And so some of the School Energy Coalition's previous work on Prop 39, some of their credibility and contacts, subject matter expertise is going to be real important here. There's energy calculations as part of AB 841. Those are being developed. That's kind of in the School Energy Coalition's wheelhouse. So they'll be involved significantly with Cash, the maintenance network, and others that we're bringing into the coalition. Of course, we'll highlight this for some of the other organizations and other stakeholders to make sure folks weigh in. Some of the issues that we're looking at trying to help the CEC with is letting them know about the school RFP process. They really don't know much, and we have a lot of experts talking about Tom Duffy and others about that. So we're going to have some of our experts help them understand that, so the wheel doesn't have to be recreated, and we can be dealing with processes that are known that we know about. I think another piece here that's important under AB 841 is the requirement for CO2 monitors. That's a big piece. We've been focused a lot, as we should, on assessments, the filters, minor repairs, and so on, larger repairs, but the requirement for CO2 monitors, both the equipment and the management of information, is a tall task, I would say. If you saw Ida Claire mention it in terms of what DSA is doing, some folks think that the requirement or there's some misunderstanding, the requirement for CO2 monitors is as a result of AB 841. Well, it is, but really that's been a long-standing requirement that is essentially being activated now. So even if there wasn't an 841, requirements for CO2 monitoring is going to be a big new challenge for schools, and so that's something we're trying to help them with, as well as get information out to our members on that issue. It's going to be a challenge, but it's a big part, an important part of doing the assessments and all those initial pieces to set yourself up for larger investments in HVAC should that be necessary. So also I saw Ms. Claire mentioned the National Energy Management Institute training, and that's important pieces that they're doing with their internal staff. Also, NEMI is their acronym, has also created excellent training on AB 841. Some of you probably on here have seen that. We've previewed a little bit of that, and we're going to continue to work with them on that training. It'll be important in the next couple of months in implementation, because now there's more meat on the bone. We'll know more about it, and so it should be very beneficial. So with that, that's all to let you know that Cash, the School Energy Coalition, the Cash Maintenance Network, and others in the school other education representatives and stakeholders will be weighing into the CEC, summarizing some of these questions and these issues that are outstanding that you might have seen on our workshop yesterday. So that's all to say. We're really on this on an everyday basis, and there'll be more to come. So look for that. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out and contact me. A fair amount of folks have, and I'm glad to talk to you about it more in detail, maybe more district specific or whatever, and appreciate everyone's input. So thank you. All done.
Okay. Next slide, please. Hi, this is Dave Walrath with Californians for School Facilities. A quick update. The comment that Ian made regarding the stimulus language, which was very, very clear that the funds can be used for indoor air quality actions, repair, maintenance, potentially replacement of the ventilation systems with that funds. So that is a very positive, because that is a significant amount of money which will be available and potentially can be used for high priority projects, maybe even faster than the 841 money. As Ian said, we have essentially two tracks going on here, one being a state, 841, the other being federal through the stimulus funding. The next set of stimulus that has been proposed, $1.9 trillion, of which about 70 billion nationally would be for K-12, and we believe California would receive somewhere around 8 to 8.5 billion of that amount. Those funds we expect will also have the flexibility language to deal with reopening schools and using those funds for the types of facility actions needed for reopening. In addition, we have the reintroduction of last year's Rebuild and Reopen America's Schools Act. It's by Chairman Bobby Scott of the House of Representatives Education and Labor Committee. It's $100 billion nationally over a 10-year period, most of the funds being in the first 5 years, grants and tax credit bonds making up to $100 billion. Most of Mr. Scott's bill, which passed out of his committee last year, went to Ways and Means, became incorporated in the House of Representatives' major $1 trillion infrastructure proposal. So schools were part of that proposal. It was HR 2, passed the House, died in the Senate. In fact, I don't think it was heard in the Senate. Some of those politics may be changing because of the change of both who is the party in control of the White House and the shift of control of the Senate. So we are hopeful that when we get past the next COVID stimulus, the 1.9 trillion, the administration and Congress will become more involved on the infrastructure proposal. It now appears that the White House will be proposing an infrastructure of $2 trillion, which would probably be a 10-year program, roads, highways, bridges, airports, et cetera, including schools. And they have been clear in their comments during the campaign that they see schools as a major part of infrastructure. So Californians for Schools is the federal lobbying organization. We have been going back to Washington. That was kind of abbreviated only very early last year. We were looking at how we continue through virtual meetings with the appropriate committees, committee staff, and departments in order to advocate for school facility funding and support by the federal government. Much more positive situation now than we had while we were looking at the absolute recession of what occurred last year. So with that, thank you very much. We'll be talking to you. Californians for School Facilities does provide updates for cash and hope that you'll follow those. We'll be asking for your help as we try to move forward these bills and have them enacted for another stream of revenue for schools to use to improve their schools, their school facilities. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. All right, next up, we've got something a little special. We're fortunate to have, we've got Denver Stairs with us from Clovis Unified School District. And Denver, you're going to share a little bit about your reopening experience for the district.
Perfect. Thank you all very much. So yeah, we're living in the same world as everybody else on how do we get kids back in school? How do we get them back in school safely? And how do we work with our staff to ensure their safety, right? Which is a huge concern, and it's a huge concern on many levels. So no one, I don't think in the world believed March 13th when our board voted to go to online learning that we would still be here almost a year later. But here we are, and we're working through that. We've had various stages of returning to school. Our elementary schools, we applied for and received a waiver. And so most of our elementary schools have most of their kids back. And then our secondary sites are in small cohort groups. And so, you know, it's been a challenge on a number of ways on how do we get information out. We've done a number of surveys to our parents and our staff. And, you know, kind of what we're seeing across the board is no matter what you do, 50% of the people have one feeling and 50% of the people feel the exact opposite. So we kind of let our parents choose in our latest return as far as do they want the hybrid model or not. Obviously, then with the shelter in place, we paused that. So we've got a little over almost 11,000 students that are set to return hybrid. Our elementary schools, like I said, are mostly full, you know, anywhere from 200 to 600 students a day that are going through our elementary campuses in various capacities, whether it be some of them, as we're calling it, Zoom in a room, where teachers are both teaching live to the students in their classroom, and then they're simultaneously teaching to the rest of the students that are home on Zoom, and then those students flip-flop. So we're trying a couple of different models. For us on the facility side, what that looks like, you know, we had to get creative because we've got some teachers that are in their classroom before we left for Christmas. We're in their classroom a couple days a week, and so everybody had a magnet that they used, and if they were there in the classroom that day, they put the magnet on the door so that the teams could come in and fog that classroom at night and take care of all of their cleaning needs. We just started last week the installation of some bipolar ionization machines in our classrooms to help with air quality. And this is not the end all be all. This is one step for us. But the team that we're working with is doing a great job. They got one of our biggest high schools done in 6 days. They did our middle school in 2 days. And so we're working through, they're going to finish the district by March 15th. So working through what that looks like as we move to our elementary schools where we've got kids in the classrooms and we have to social distance from the folks that are doing the install and working around our students in class. But there's just been a lot of how do we do that? And then you add in the sports piece to that, which our district and I know CIF in general have been working really hard to do that. And we've got a youth sports piece here, you know, where people that are turning in facilities requests. We had a huge issue early on with groups from out of town because all of our fields are open. There's no fences. They actually were busing kids and busing teams in. We had a group from Northern California that actually hosted a tournament without permission, sent out flyers, bussed the tournament in, and charged admission on our fields. And so working through what that looks like, because we were getting calls from the health department over having these large events and they weren't sanctioned working with our groups to let them know, they can use them now under purple, as long as they're meeting the right requirements, but they can't have any games or large crowds. And everybody's just getting antsy, right? We got numbers yesterday in Fresno County that were, for the first time in a long time, were good. Yeah, thanks, Julie. I did turn on the sprinklers once. It worked really good. It deterred the folks from coming, but it was a good lesson. We won't do it again. But yesterday we had the numbers actually went down. Our case rate went down. And I think people see that and they go, we're out of this, and they want to return 100% to normal right away. And so we're just still working through what that looks like. Like I said, lots of conversations with our staffs. I met with our staff representative group on Monday to talk about kind of what we're calling the four levels of protection for their classroom, be it the bipolar ionization that we're doing, the daily fogging, hand sanitizer in all the rooms, and then the intermittent cleaning that's taking place. And really spreading that, we worked, my colleague and I went and visited pretty much every school in our district to talk about where they were going to have their temperature check stations and how were we going to handle ingress and egress of students. So just a lot of nuances there. It was a great opportunity to really get out and walk through, like I said, every campus and talk with those staffs. I cannot say enough what heroes our site leaders have been through this, because they're taking all of this on the chin. They get the first question from parents, from the community, and they have done an absolute fantastic job. So we're still working our way through it. We're hoping the numbers continue to trend in the right direction as we saw, needing that case rate to be down at 25 per 100,000. I think yesterday we were at either 75 or 74, but we had been in the 90s. So like I said, trending in the right way, and we're hoping that we can continue to work with our staffs and our parents to get our kids back as soon as we can. If anybody has questions, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Denver, that's awesome. So where are you seeing financially? Are you think you're having enough of the money for the PPEs that are going to cover all the testing and everything required?
Yeah, if we get into a situation where we have to test every person every day or every week, that is a huge burden, obviously. And so we're thinking, our figures, we're looking at about 40 million that we would have to spend just in the testing side. And so we're holding, kind of earmarking a lot of that CARES Act money for that, just to be conservative, so that we have it if we need it.
Yeah. So the one John had asked, just to confirm, you are open now for hybrid learning.
Yeah. So John, we're open. The way that the ruling came out is no additional students could return, and so because we had a large number of our students return November 30th. At our elementary schools to the waiver, we're just waiting for that 25 per 100,000 metric to bring basically all of our secondary students back. So they were all set to go back in January, and then it got delayed to January 19th and then to February 1st. And then the 25 per 100 metric came out.
Okay, right. All right, Denver, if anything comes in, and I know you've been fortunate, again, you've been on some of our webinars and web shops, and we appreciate all your input and letting us know what reality is of that reopening and where we're at there. So hopefully everyone stays healthy and it goes well. So
perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So our next slide is we've got our job exchange and people's choice. So if you have any incoming RFPs or RFQs or job openings with your district and you'd like to advertise that here, please utilize our Cash's Professional Opportunities Job Board. Many times you think, oh, I'll just run it local and this and that, but there are a lot of people who actually do want to make a change in location, and depending on the right job, that they would be willing to move from Northern or Southern California, either way. So what's really nice about the Cash Professional Opportunity is that it hits so many different regions. You're not just looking for your local region that's advertised on that. So again, Also, if you have RFQs or RFPs, and especially if you're trying to attract consultants from maybe outside your area, it's a great way to reach out to them. So please feel free to utilize that. Get in there to post RFQ or RFP. So let's see. And then our next slide is mark your calendars for the next Cash Day, which is going to be held on February 24th of 2021. And I think that is bringing us to the end of our meeting today. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We appreciate everyone who spoke for our legislative updates, our analysts, our partners at Office of Public Construction, California Department of Education, OPSC, and of course, thanks Denver and for sharing with us, and Dave and Nancy and Rebecca and Ian. And of course, big thanks to Caitlin and Jessica, who are our whizzes behind the scenes on our monthly meetings. So thank you all pretty much. And we will see you next month, if not sooner. Take care.